Okay, thank you, Andres and Dana. Well, welcome everybody. Today we are going to be presenting the 2023 Trademark Agent Qualifying Examination Candidate Orientation. You're joined with me with Tifan Camus. She is our coordinator for registration, or sorry, our administrator for registration and education, and she'll be co-presenting with me today. So thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy afternoons and schedules to talk about the exam that will be happening in a few weeks, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any remaining questions that you might have about the logistics or what to expect on the exam days.
So, hello. First of all, for the French speaking, I'm just going to speak a little bit in French. Pour les candidats français, vous avez accès à la traduction. Il suffit de cliquer sur le petit icône en forme de globe sur interprétation. Vous pouvez choisir la présentation en français. So the agenda. So we're going to talk a lot about many things. So the exam dates, the blueprint, type of questions you're going to have, the reference materials you're going to be allowed to have, the exam platform, the further instructions, the scoring and results, the frequently asked questions, and the questions. So if you have any question, we have set aside a lot of time for those. So be reassured we're going to answer as many questions as possible. And then the final slide will be how to contact us and how to contact our providers.
Thanks, Tipan. Just a note on questions as well. We're going to be using the Q&A feature for this webinar. So we will not be using the raise hand feature or unmuting anybody to speak. If you do have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. You might want to wait and hold on to your questions until the end because we might actually cover the information that you are going to be asking about. Okie dokie. So I already see a questions come in, so we'll deal with that at the very end of the presentation.
Okay. Next slide, Jen, I think.
It should be exam dates. Do you not see the exam date slide?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sorry. The exam date. So as you know, in 2 weeks' time, you're gonna have your first part. So part A from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So for those who are on the West Coast or Alberta or other province, don't forget it's 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And the part B will be on September 20th. Same time, 1 p.m., 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
So the blueprint for Part A and Part B has not changed in the preceding 2 years. Part A is still covering issues that may be raised prior to advertisement of the application in the Trademarks Journal. And core tasks will include office actions, availability, registrability applications. Some non-core tasks include ethics and conflict of interest, passing off, licensing, other IP rights, and foreign protection and Madrid Protocol. We have a particular slide on Madrid Protocol later on in the presentation. Subtasks would include chain of title, certification marks, non-traditional marks, and then overall competencies, knowledge and analytical skills, problem-solving skills, communication, and drafting. So this is very different from the new competency profiles, which will be used in the exams starting in 2024. We are still using the previous terminology that was in place for the legacy exams. Part B is the same as it was before as well. So this is issues that may be raised after advertisement of the application in the Trademarks Journal. Core tasks will be opposition and Section 45 proceedings, non-core tasks, ethics and conflict of interest, licensing, infringement, passing off, and other IP rights and transfers. Again, same subtasks as before, chain of title, certification marks, non-traditional marks, and same competencies as in Part A. So really, there have not been significant changes to the content that you will be tested on during the 2023 legacy exams.
So the types of questions you're going to have during the exam are short answer, matching, true, false, long answers that can be opinions, statements of opposition, etc., and multiple choice.
Yep, so there's not going to be any major changes to the types of questions. There should be very straightforward and similar to the practice exam questions that you see online, which I will show you at the end of the presentation. And for those who are attempting the exams again, it will be very similar types of questions and question structure. Reference materials. So you have access to some reference materials during the exam. During the exam and on the platform, you will have access to the Trademarks Act and the trademarks regulations. If you would like to have a hard copy English or French dictionary, then you are also permitted to have that with you. If you would like to print the Trademarks Act and trademarks regulations and pre-highlight or pre-tab them, you are permitted to do that. The live proctors will be reviewing those reference materials before the exam starts to make sure that you haven't written anything else on them. So you'll have access to them in two ways. Through the platform, everybody will have access to that through the exam aid section. And then if you want to print them out and have them with you in hard copy during the exam, then you can do that as well. In terms of exam preparation, most of you will be familiar with the previous exams that are posted on our website. There are also some sample exams, and those are just questions from the 2022 exams that have been put in the platform so that you can become familiar with the functionality and how to answer various types of questions within the platform.
Okay, so next week you will have the opportunity to do a practice exam with a live-in proctor. So that would be between September 11th and 15th. Proctors are available 24/7. You will be able to test your computer system and ensure everything works properly before the exams will return the following week. This is not a full mock practice exam. You will only be presented with the published practice exams again. This is to give candidates more familiarity with the platform and what to expect on exams day. So this is a very important date. You will be sent the link to connect with the live proctors on September 8th, 2023.
Right, so this Friday, you'll receive an email that has instructions for connecting with the live proctors, and then you will be able to start doing that next Monday from September 11th to the 15th. And it's really important that if you have not gone through the exam process before, or even if you're a repeat writer, that you do the live proctor check-in again, just because you want to make sure that your system is still working properly, that there are not changes to your environment or your room that you have to make, and that there's no surprises on exam day, so you'll be the least stressed you could possibly be for an examination day. In terms of the platform, we use two different vendors for our platform. The first is Paradigm Testing, and they prepare the online exam platform. So when you're doing the practice exams, that is the company that is dealing with and developing and publishing the exams on the platform. Monitor EDU is our proctoring provider. And so those are the live proctors that will connect with you during the exam on the exam days to make sure that the room is set up properly and for exam security and integrity purposes. And if you'd like to have more information about Monitor EDU and their live proctoring services, then the link to their website and their FAQs is up on this slide. Computer froze. Of course it would freeze now. Sorry, 1 second. There we go. All right, so this is a video for setting up your room. I'm not going to play it for you right now, but this is what the thumbnail looks like. So if you haven't already watched this video, I strongly recommend that you do watch the video so that you have an idea of the types of changes that you might need to make in your exam environment in order for it to be acceptable for exam day and for testing. So again, I'm not going to play the video for you right now, but this is linked in the candidate guide, as well as linked in the confirmation emails that you'll be receiving. All right, so in terms of preparation for examination days, there's a couple of things that you'll want to have done ahead of time. You want to test your equipment, do this ahead of time, not on examination day. Please do not wait till the examination day to test your equipment or to set up your system. This is exactly why we have the live proctor check-in next week. That is because we want to make sure that everybody has figured out any technical issues well ahead of the exam. If your laptop isn't working, then maybe you can borrow somebody else's, or whatever has to happen in terms of the room changes, etc. So definitely testing your equipment, setting up your room, doing the live proctor check-in. Those are all very important things to do ahead of the examination days. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, preparing your reference materials are also helpful if you wish to have the printed ones with you during the exam. So you can pre-tab and pre-highlight those materials. You cannot write anything else on those materials. So no notes to yourself, no notes about anything else. You can only pre-tab and pre-highlight. Now on the pre-tabbing, I've had questions before where people have asked, can you write the section number or like the I guess that would be the provision number or what have you, so that it's easy for you to figure out where on the reference materials you're trying to look. And so that is fine. You can, if it's section 3 and you want to tab section 3 and just put a 3 on that, then that would be acceptable. Any other writing would not be acceptable on those reference materials. And the reference materials that we are using for the exam platform and that were used to develop the exams are actually linked as PDFs in the candidate guide. So those are the ones that we are using for the 2023 exams, and those are the ones that you should be printing if you wish to do that as your reference material. And then also have a government issued ID with you for your proctor check-in when you're doing your actual exam. So part of the process will be the proctor will make sure it's you who's actually writing the exam. They'll do the room check-in, and they'll make sure that your system is working before they release the exam codes to you. So those are 3 really important things to do before the exam days. Now, on examination day, there's a couple of steps that you'll want to be paying attention to. The first step is around 12 o'clock Eastern time, so about an hour before the exam starts. You're going to want to go to the site that's linked on the slide. And again, this will all be emailed to you as well, so you don't have to worry about that. And the slides will be posted on the website too. So you're going to go to the website and fill out the sign-in form. There's a little sign-in form that you select. You're going to want to have the Google Meets app pre-downloaded on your cell phone, because there is a 2-camera proctoring setup that they have going to make sure that the screen is being proctored, as well as if there's any issues with the camera or the screen, then you have a backup in terms of being able to connect with the proctor. Have your government picture ID ready. And then after you complete the check-in process with the proctor, they'll release the codes to log into the exam platform to start the exam. So because exam proctors have some candidates, not just one candidate at a time that they're proctoring, it could be that you have to wait a few minutes for the proctor to check you in, to check your ID, to do the room check for you, or to release the exam codes. I don't want anybody to think that they're going to be not getting the full amount of time for the exam, because the timer will only start once you've actually read the candidate agreement and then clicked accept and the exam launches. I'll show you when we actually get to the practice exam where you can see the timer, but don't worry about losing any time in that period, because the timer for you will begin once you actually launch the exam and you've accepted the candidate agreement. So don't worry if it's taking the proctor a few minutes to get through all of the people that they've been assigned. You will not miss out on any time that is associated with your exam. Now, during the exam, you may not access the following types of personal items. You cannot access your cell phone, other than, again, to have that Google Meets app on your phone to make sure that the proctoring service can still connect with you if you have a disconnection with your computer. No headphones or headsets, no wired headphones, no Bluetooth headphones. Handheld computers or other electronic devices like tablets, you can't have any of those things around you. No pagers, I don't even know if those exist anymore, but no pagers. No watches, you have a timer on your screen, so you don't have to worry about keeping track of time. No wallets, no purses, no bags, no coats, no books, no other notes or any other materials that weren't previously approved by CPATA, either through an accommodation request or based on the pre-tabbed and pre-highlighted reference materials. You also can't wear any hats or other head coverings unless they're worn as a religious observance. And this is, again, all for exam security purposes. There are a couple of things from the candidate guide that I also wanted to highlight for you during the presentation today. The first is incident reports. So Monitor EDU is our proctoring provider, and they use Google Meets to support their proctoring services. This will allow exam sessions to be recorded. The recordings will be saved with Monitor EDU for a finite period of time. Therefore, if something occurs during your exam that you think that we need to be aware of, please send a request to schedule@monitoredu.com, and that's in the candidate guide as well, so you don't have to worry about writing that down, with your name, your candidate number, and the date of the exam when the incident occurred, to request that they share the exam recording with us at CPATA for further investigation. These requests must be submitted to Monitor EDU prior to the release of the examination results. So if there is an issue that happens during the examination that you think that we need to know about or you'd like us to have the recording for, then I would recommend that right after the exam is written, that's when you send the request to Monitor EDU so that we have that request in place right away. You don't have to worry about forgetting to do it or anything like that. Snacks and water. You may have a drink with you, but it must be in a clear vessel. So that means a clear bottle, a clear cup, a clear glass, etc. It cannot have any labels on it. So if you have a bottle with a label on it, you have to remove the label. You also can have snacks with you, but they must be in a clear Ziploc style bag so that the proctor can see what's actually in the bag. Also, please tell the proctor at the beginning when you're checking in that you'd like to have snacks during the exam so that they're aware of that. You'll receive an email confirmation from Monitor EDU, probably, I'm going to say late next week, that will provide you with the protocol for exam days and some system setup information. If you'd like more information about their privacy policies, then you can also look those up on their website, and that's linked on this slide here as well. Earplugs, if you wish to wear earplugs during the exam, they need to be new foam earplugs that are still in their package. Candidates must open them in front of the proctor. Candidates must advise CPATA if they wish to use earplugs prior to the start of the exam so that we can advise the proctors ahead of time and there won't be any issues during the exam. Jewelry, to support the integrity of the exam security, you'll be asked to remove any jewelry before the exam, and that includes earrings, necklaces, and bracelets. The other thing that I wanted to point out, and this happened a couple of times last year during the exam, is that you can't leave the exam. Like if the phone rings, if the doorbell rings, if you get a package delivered, you cannot leave the exam. You cannot just stand up and walk away. If you do that, we will actually be forced to disqualify you from the examination. Your examination attempt will be considered null and void, and then you will be transitioned into the new exam process in 2024. So it's very important that if there is some kind of emergency, and I'm talking about an emergency, not like a package is being delivered, but an emergency where you have to leave the exam space, then you need to contact the proctor before you do that. And in a few slides, we'll go through how to get the attention of the proctor if there is an issue. So this is a legend that I've copied from the instructions page on the exam platform for this year. This legend allows you to use acronyms during the exam rather than typing or writing out the whole thing. So instead of having to write out Trademarks Act, you can write TMA. Instead of having to write out trademarks regulations, then you can write TMR. And so these particular acronyms have been approved by the examination board. And so if you use them, there won't be any consequence for using an acronym. But you can't just say what the acronym is without providing further citation, for example, if you're being asked to cite the authority. Multiple monitors are not allowed, so you're only allowed to have the exam platform open on one of your monitors. If there is a way for you to do that so that one monitor is not in use and you're using, say, like your bigger monitor, for example, then that's something that you should check in with the live proctors next week when you're setting up your room so that they can make sure that the setup that you have going is okay. But in terms of when the exam is actually being written, you won't have access to two monitors at the same time. You'll only have access to one monitor. Bathroom breaks. So time is not added back for bathroom breaks, but they are permitted. They're only added back, or the clock is only paused for those who have approved accommodations for medical issues, for example. Technical issues. Time is only added back for technical issues beyond the candidate's control. So for example, if you did not set your system up, if you did not do the live proctor check-in, if you tried to set your system up and see if everything was working the day of the exam, and you don't actually start the exam until an hour later, then technically you've lost an hour of the exam because we've provided enough time for you to be able to do these things well ahead of the exam. If during the exam, for example, though, your internet cuts out and you get locked out of the exam, or you get bumped out of the exam, you have to come back in. Then if the timer was not paused at that point, any time you would have lost will be added back into your exam. If that happens, make sure that you flag that for the proctor and just confirm with them that they are either they've added the time back or that the timer was paused during that connectivity issue. Anything that happens during the exam is escalated to me during the actual exam. I am connected with the live proctoring services and the exam platform service throughout the entirety of the exam. So if there are any issues that come up during the exam that need to be escalated to me for a decision, then I am there to do that right away. So there's no time delays there.
Okay, I got a few additional information. So you have a maximum of 3 hours to complete your examination. All exams will be submitted 3 hours after you have started your exam. It is your responsibility to ensure that your environment is adequate for testing, which is why we encourage you to watch the video that we mentioned earlier. The examination is being displayed in the language of choice you selected on your registration form. Please answer in the official language of your choice, English or French. Yeah, if you have any doubt, just ask us, what did I write on the form? And we will tell you, You must answer all of the examination questions in the spaces provided. Computer problems, internet-related difficulties, and connectivity issues, including problems resulting from a power outage, should be directed to the live proctor during the exam. As Jen mentioned, we'll tell you how to get noticed by the proctor during the exam. As this is an individual examination, you're strictly forbidden from consulting any other individuals or materials. It is strongly recommended that you isolate yourself to complete your exam. So an office at your firm or a room. We definitely recommend that. The only external resource allowed while completing the written exam is a physical hard copy English and or French dictionary. You're not allowed to consult any other resource. Late starts. Any time missed due to late start, which was not attributed to a technology issue, will be deducted from the total examination time, which is why Jen was saying earlier that you should try to check in, log in at 12 so that you have some time. Allocate your time. So the marks referred to throughout the examination are provided to show the relative weight attributed to each question. Allocate your time accordingly to avoid running out of time. Recognize that writing extensively on questions that are worth few marks may prevent you from fully answering more substantive questions worth more marks. Write efficiently. Salutations, signatures, and other formalities of correspondence are not required in your answers. Substance is important. Marks are awarded for analytical and problem-solving skills, communication skills, drafting skills, prioritizing and judgment skills, in addition to knowledge demonstrated in your answers. Answers given in point form are acceptable, except where the question specifically asks you to draft or write your answer. Read the questions carefully. Read the questions carefully before answering and answer the questions as asked, based on the facts presented. In drafting the questions, the examining board attempts to ensure that all necessary information required to respond to the questions is included in the fact situation as set out.
Yeah, that's a really important point. Thanks, Tifan. Some of the other points that I wanted to say for the auto submission. So again, I mentioned if you are a little bit late logging in because your proctor was dealing with helping somebody else, then that 3-hour mark won't start until you accept the candidate agreement and your exam is launched. However, when that timer counts down to 1, even if you are not done with your exam, it will auto submit for you, and it will close the window and say your exam has been submitted. So just in case you are wondering what happens if you haven't finished anything, the system does not rely on you to submit if the 3 hours has elapsed. If you have completed it within the 3 hours or less than 3 hours, then you'll see on the exam platform in a little while, there is a submit button in the bottom right-hand corner, and then you can submit your exam earlier if you wish to do that. All right, so now I'm going to show you a little bit about what the platform looks like so that you know what to expect when you are accessing it during the live proctor check-in or even during the exams. So you'll receive a username and password from the exam provider with the link to the exam. You'll enter the information into, you can see right here, there's a username part where you can enter that, and then a password that you enter, and then you click login, and it will launch the exam dashboard for you. It won't actually launch the exam, it'll launch the dashboard. So once you see the dashboard, it'll show you the part that you are registered for that day. So for everybody on day 1, it should say part A. For everybody on day 2, it should say part B. Then you would click on Start Test in order to launch the exam browser. So that is a secure browser that blocks you from accessing anything else on your computer during the examination. Then we'll have a long candidate agreement. So there's some instructions similar to what Tifan was just explaining, but there's a little bit more detail on the actual exam platform when we're doing the exam. So it's going to be a little bit longer than these instructions here. And then there is going to be a fairly substantial candidate agreement that's important for you to read through. The candidate agreement is also on our practice exams online, so you can take a look at that ahead of time and familiarize yourself with that so that you don't have to frantically be reading it before you actually launch the exam. Then if you click down here on accept and then start, then the exam will launch and the timer will start. If you click decline, then it won't let you into the exam, and we won't be able to let you write the exam. So if you accidentally click decline, then you need to contact your proctor so that they can reset that for you, and then you can launch the examination. In terms of the response field, so I have some different examples on the screen for what you should be looking for. The first thing is up here where it says the question score. So for each of the questions on the platform, it'll identify how many marks are allocated to that question. The image underneath that is a rich text editor field, and that is used for longer answer responses. So if there's something that asks you to draft a response or draft something to an examiner, for example, then this is the type of question response field that you will see on the exam platform. There's also true and false. You can see in French and in English, or yes or no. And this one on the right side of the screen is what it looks like for a short answer response. So for example, if it's just a explain or cite the authority, you don't need a really big text box to be able to write that response. You can just write it in a couple of characters or a couple of words, and that will be sufficient. So those are the types of response fields that you'll be seeing on the exam platform. Now, it's important that you have different options for navigating through the questions. So I want to show you how to navigate through the questions on the platform as well. As you can see, there is a previous button, a next button, and a bookmark button, and those are presented under each one of the questions. There's also at the bottom of the screen a listing of questions in chronological order. And so once you have looked at a question, then it will turn from green to blue. So you can see 29, 30, 31, 32. Those are all questions that I've seen and possibly answered. And then from 33 onward, those are green. So I haven't actually opened those yet. So you can click on one of the exam questions by clicking on the number at the bottom of the screen. You can use the previous and next and bookmark buttons to navigate through the questions as well. And there is a question review box in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen that will allow you to click on or review the questions that you have entered answers for, review questions that are incomplete, meaning you have not answered that question, you've not put in an answer, review flagged questions. So those are the ones that you've clicked the bookmark for. So maybe you know half the answer, but you're not really sure. So you want to click that as bookmark and have it be presented to you at the end so you can go back to it and finish your answer so you can finish the rest of the exam. So those are the different ways that you can navigate throughout the exam in terms of accessing the different questions. So here on the screen, I have a sample view for you. This is just a sample multiple choice question. This is what a multiple choice question might look like on the platform. You can see down here, we have the navigation bar. So you see questions 1, 2, and 3. Here we have the next button and the bookmark button. Because this is the first question, there's no previous buttons. Questions 2 and onward, then there would be a previous button. Down here on the bottom right, you'll see the navigation review. So that's that little box I was just explaining where you can review the flagged items, the incomplete items, the ones that you've already answered. On the right-hand side, you'll also see exam aids. And if you click on that, that's where the Trademarks Act, the trademarks regulations, and there's a little like a notepad kind of feature where you can type some notes into yourself if you wanted to do that while you're reviewing a question or trying to draft your answer. Now the timer is in the top right-hand corner, and so that timer will be counting down from 3 hours from the time that you click on accept and the exam browser, the secure browser opens. Then if you wanted to finish the exam and click submit, then it would submit your exam and you would no longer be able to access the exam. So don't submit the exam until you are sure that you have completed all of the questions and you're happy with your responses. If you accidentally click submit, then you need to get in touch with the proctor right away so that they can have that fixed for you and reopen the exam, just in case that you accidentally did it at the very end. It's not going to work if you submit it and then you disconnect from everybody and then maybe 10 or 15 minutes later you realize, oh, maybe I want to reopen the exam. They're not going to let you do that. It has to be like an instantaneous, oh, I just accidentally did this. I need to get back into the exam. That would be the only time that we would allow that to happen. Here's another sample view. So in this particular situation, there's a very lengthy stem to the question. So there's a lot of information that's on the left-hand side of the screen. And then the actual questions are visible on the right-hand side of the screen. Then there is the highlight and strike through feature. So while you are reading the background information for a question, if you identified a piece of information that you thought was important for you to remember, you can select that text, right click, and then click on highlight if you wanted to make that more visible for you while you're going through the rest of the question background. If there's something that you know is not important for what you need to be looking at, then you can also use the strike through feature. Now, there's different types of issues that could happen during the examination. You could have a power outage, you could have network connectivity issues, or you could have other technical difficulties. A power outage is a sudden loss of electricity that interrupts the exam delivery or causes test takers' devices to shut down. If a candidate loses power and the device shuts down, they need to remain calm, first and foremost. If the computer is off, then the exam timer is going to be paused. The candidate should get their proctor's attention to let them know what has happened, and that then the proctor will guide them on what to do in order to reopen the exam. Monitor EDU will escalate the issue to CPATA, and then we'll talk about potential backup plans if the power isn't restored right away. Network connectivity issues. So those are problems with the internet connectivity that prevent exam candidates from accessing the platform or cause the exam platform to freeze or disconnect. If a candidate has internet connectivity issues, they will need to let the proctor know right away. The proctor will then ask the candidate to restart the computer. While this is happening, if the candidate has access to the internet or router or modem, then they'll need to try to restart that as well. If the issue still doesn't resolve itself, then Monitor EDU will escalate to CPATA and we'll figure out the next course of action for that situation. Technical issues or software malfunction with the platform. These could be issues with the exam software, such as errors, bugs, or incompatibilities, or crashes that interfere with exam delivery or prevent candidates from progressing through the exam. If you experience any of these issues, then contact the proctor right away for troubleshooting assistance. Okay, so this slide is very important because it explains how to get your proctor's attention if there are any issues during the examination. So the first thing you need to do is say your name and raise your hand and wait for the proctor to connect back through audio with you. Proctors can manage more than one test taker at a time. So if it takes them a minute to respond, it could be that they're also assisting another examiner. If they don't respond, please pick up your phone and wave it at the camera. So we'll just do that as a sample. Wave your phone at the camera on your computer, or hold your phone so that they can see that you need something. Please don't disconnect from the video chat without talking to your proctor first. Okay, so results. Both parts A and B will be marked for all candidates. As a reminder, candidates who are not successful with both parts A and B in 2022 and in 2023 will be required to start the new examination process in 2024. So there's no carry forward of incomplete examinations once the new exam process starts in 2024. That means that if you don't pass Part A and Part B in the 2023 administration, then you will need to start with the knowledge exams that are scheduled to occur in March of 2024. So there's a couple of frequently asked questions that we've received over the last couple of years, and I've started to incorporate them into the candidate orientation so that everybody gets the access to the same information. So the first question is, are full citations required when citing a case, or is it sufficient to do abbreviated versions? Candidates will be expected to cite specific sections and subsections of the Trademarks Act and regulations, or the title of a practice notice as requested. Candidates can use short form to identify specific practice notice topics, and you can see the candidate guide for some examples of what the exam board would accept for that. The other question is, oh yes, is the full title of a practice notice required for exam responses? Yes, however, candidates can use short form to identify specific practice notice topics. And I think so for practice notice section 45, you could say PN S45. That would be something that is acceptable, and that's listed in the candidate guide as well. Next question, is there any subject matter that was tested in 2022 that will not be tested in 2023? No, the specific topics, there were no specific topics, that were excluded compared to 2022. Is there any new subject matter that is tested in 2023? Candidates should be familiar with new practice changes and case law. Candidates should also be familiar and confident with practice notices, the Trademark Examination Manual, CPATA's Code of Professional Conduct, and the NICE classification system, in addition to the information on Madrid Protocol. Has the structure of the exam changed? No, it is the same as it was in 2021 and 2022. What is the cumulative number of marks in Part A and Part B? So each part has 150 marks and a total of 300 marks for both parts of the exam. And is the pass mark changing? Not for the 2023 examination. So for the pass mark for 2023, you still need to have a minimum of 65% in both parts in order to be considered successful at the exam administration. So this was a very specific question that we got in, and I wanted to make sure that everybody got access to the same information. And the question was, to what extent will the Madrid Protocol be covered? And this is directly from the examination board. So if there's any additional questions with respect to this material, I might have to bring it back to them, and then I will get back to the group via email with the answers. But this is directly from the examination board. All issues relevant to the practice of Canadian agents, including 1, assisting foreign applicants dealing with Madrid Protocol applications designating Canada, and 2, advising Canadian clients on Madrid Protocol applications originating from Canada and designating other countries. Candidates are not expected to know specific details regarding local laws outside of Canada, but they should have sufficient general knowledge regarding Madrid Protocol applications and registrations. This may nevertheless require candidates to have a general understanding of Canadian law compared to other countries. For example, if they have narrower description of goods and services. Is there a particular topic area where candidates are lacking in preparation? And this is again coming from the examination board from the previous year's examinations. So Madrid system in its procedural aspects, understanding evidence from a practical perspective, NICE classification, drafting of goods and services, analytical skills need to be strengthened. For example, many candidates last year did not take the time to go through each criterion of Section 6.5 of the Trademarks Act to determine whether or not there was confusion. Note the notion of a license versus a distribution contract, and candidates need to have a better understanding of the license agreements in general. So those were some of the things that were identified by the exam board last year that people generally didn't perform as well on as we would expect. So I've put the contact slide us first, just so that we can get that out of the way and then move right into the questions. So we do have about an hour and 20 minutes left. I see that there are some questions in the Q&A, but before we move on to the questions, I'm just going to show you the platform really quickly so that you can see that if you haven't had a chance to do that. So I'm going to stop this share really quickly and then share my exam platform screen with you. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okie dokie. So you should be able to see my my browser right now. And I wanted to identify the exam preparation site. So that included the link to register for the orientation session. And then this week, probably toward the end of the week, the slide deck will be posted here, as well as the link to the recordings will be posted here. So if you want to come back later on and check that out, then this is the place that you'll be able to find it. In terms of content, the candidate guide is right under the exam content header. You can see the previous trademark agent qualifying exams listed under that. Then if you scroll down to sample exams, we have trademark agent A and trademark agent B. So I'll just open up the A so you can see what that looks like. So this is really what it will look like when you open up the exams during the exam days. You'll receive the instructions, it'll have the candidate agreement. So you can read all of that now and get that out of the way so you don't have to worry about stressing out reading it before the exam actually starts. Click on accept and then start. And the sample exam will launch for you. So a couple of things I wanted to point out again, the timer that's up in the top right-hand corner, if I can get my mouse to work. There we go, the exam aid. So if you click on that, then you'll be able to see, we had the mark breakdown for last year posted here. We have the act posted here. We have the regs posted here. So because of how the window opens, it might take up the screen when you're actually writing, like when you're actually looking up and trying to write your answer down. So that's why a lot of people have it printed out as well. And they can have the access to the printed version as well as the version that's in the exam aids. So we'll just minimize that. Down here, you can see is that question navigation. So I'm going to be in 1 and I'm just going to click test as a little test and then click next. And it should bring me down to question 2. And as you can see, when I did that, question 1 down here became blue, and then the rest of the questions are green because I haven't started those yet. You can also increase the font size for the exam just by clicking on this little button down here. So if I wanted to make it bigger, then I can click the middle one. If I wanted to make it even bigger than that, then I can click the largest one. And so that's really good for accessibility purposes, and you don't have to request any special accommodations for that. Anybody has access to that feature. The question review box is down here at the bottom. Again, you can look at the attempted, the incomplete, the flagged. And then once you have completed your exam, you press submit. It will give you a warning message. So hopefully nobody accidentally submits their exams, because that would require you to read the warning message, say yes, and then proceed to submit the exam. So if you accidentally click submit, then you should say no if you're not done. But if you are done, then you can click yes, and it will submit. And this is the screen that you will see when you have submitted your exam, or if it auto submits for you. So without any further ado, I'll stop sharing and I will open up the floor to questions. So let me pull up the exams here. Bill 96, so you'll have to remind me, I'm not familiar with bills by their numbers very much. If you could let me know in the Q&A what bill that is, then I can see if I know or if I have to get back to you on that. Okay, next question. Are we expected to memorize the fees online, or can we refer to the fee schedule in the regulations and state that the fees are the most up to date on the CPA website? No, you're not expected to memorize fees. So if there's anything related to fees in the question, then the information that you need will be provided to you in terms of if there is an amount that's needed or anything like that, but you don't have to memorize the fee schedule. You do need to know when fees need to be paid though. So you might not know how much it is, but you might need to know when a fee might have to be paid or if additional fees are necessary for a particular service that a client wants. Is the dictionary necessary for the exam? No, it's not necessary. It's just an option if you are, if you would feel more comfortable having a dictionary with you. It's not linked in the exam platform, so that's why we say if you'd like to have one, then you can have a hard copy with you. Again, the proctors will look through that though, so you just want to make sure that there's nothing written in that dictionary other than the words from the dictionary. Is it possible to copy and paste from the Act and the regulations? No, in this exam platform, copying and pasting is turned off for security purposes. So you're not going to be able to copy and paste from the Act or the regulations, or really any part of the exam platform. You have to type it out. The Act on the platform is current to July 25th, 2022, whereas the one linked on the candidate guide. So the one on the platform that we just looked at right now was from the last year's exam. So that's why it's from July 2022. So you want to use the one that's linked in the candidate guide for the 2023 exam that's posted on our website that I just showed you. Candidates are not permitted to leave the exam, but are permitted for bathroom breaks. I assume we need to ask for proctor permission to inform them. Yes, exactly. So you would just get the proctor's attention, indicate to them that you need a bathroom break, and then they will say, okay, do that. It depends. If you're gone for a really long time, then they might do another room check, or they might escalate to me if you don't have an accommodation that's been approved, but you've been out of the room for a significant period of time. Otherwise, there aren't any other requirements. So we've already discussed copy and paste. How do we get in touch with proctors in the event of a power outage? So that is why your phone is still connected through the Google Meets app. So the power outage shouldn't affect your phone as long as your phone is charged. Oh, that's a very good point. Make sure your phones are charged so that you're able to use your phone during the entirety of the examination. Make sure it's connected to Wi-Fi so that you're not paying for extra data or anything like that. The other thing I wanted to point out is that sometimes candidates, when they write in their firm location, like their employment location, the security on their IT systems prevents them from accessing the secure browser and the secure platform. So that's another reason why if you're going to be writing at your office, for example, you're going to want to do that live proctor check-in to make sure that there aren't any security, like IT security issues from your network side that's preventing you from actually accessing the platform or the examination. Can you copy and paste? No, no copying and pasting is allowed. Blank piece of lined paper to write on. I have to check my notes. I don't think that we allowed for blank paper last year. Tifan, can you take a look in the candidate guide and just see if we had put that in for this year? Usually we don't need to have that in there because the exam platform has a little notepad actually. So if you wanted to write something in that little notepad, then that would be a place that you can write notes. I think that if we do allow notes, then that paper has to be torn up in front of the proctor after the exam is written. But Tifan will let us know as soon as she's had a chance to look at that. Will there be a link to the exam sent to our email on exam day, or will we be going to the same website as the one used when testing? So you're going to receive specific instructions that will direct you to a website. Once you get to that website, you fill out a form that will connect you to a live proctor, and then they will show you how to access the examination. So it's a little bit different from when you're doing the live proctor check-in, because they're not actually going to give you any exam codes or anything like that. Oh, I've just heard that there was an interpretation issue that has been resolved. I apologize. So yeah, there's going to be a link that you use to access the site, to check it, to connect with the proctor, and then they will provide you with the link to the exam platform, as well as the codes to actually sign into the exam. Okay, so we've already talked about fees. We don't have to talk about that again. Do we need to download any special software applications? Yes, you do. You need to read the candidate guide because it describes very clearly what you need to do to set up your systems. You have to make sure that you have Google Meets on your cell phone, as well as there are some secure platform browsers that need to be downloaded and installed onto your computer so that you have access to the secure browser during the examination. Can we be logged into a VPN to access the exam platform? I don't think that that is something that will be allowed because of how the proctoring services work. So I think that you'll have to check that during the live proctor check-in next week to see if they have resolved that issue. But I'm pretty sure that the VPN won't actually let you connect to the live proctor. You'll have to double check that with them next week though. If you are, do you have access to a calculator? You don't need a calculator. There isn't anything that you need to do in terms of calculations. Is there anywhere we can find a list of cases that are examinable? No, there's no list of cases that are examinable. It's up to you as the candidate to be aware of important cases in the field. If you have access to a training supervisor that you can discuss that with, then that might be your best resource in terms of identifying the cases that are important for you to know in order to be prepared for the examination. What is needed to get full marks when citing the trademark examination manual? I don't believe, because the actual provisions, like we don't provide you access to the trademark agent trademark examination manual. So usually the citations are for the Trademark Agents Act, or sorry, the Trademarks Act, the trademarks regulations, and possibly practice notices. But if the information is coming from the trademark examination manual, then you would indicate that that was the source that it came from. I am not aware that you need to actually have memorized or anything, any of the provisions of the trademark examination manual, but I will confirm that and then get back to the group with that answer. Tifan, can you flag that as a question we need to follow up with the exam board? Thank you. When we are referencing amounts for fees, do we need to use the exact current amounts? No, we've already dealt with that. What is the requirement for providing an authority if the question doesn't specifically ask for one? So you only answer what the question is asking. If the question asks you to cite the authority, then that's what you have to do. If the question does not ask you to cite the authority, then that isn't something that you would need to do. On a tab, could you put something like 6.5 confusion or S.6 or just 6/6.5? I'm going to say keep it to just numbers. Don't put any words in there. So I would say maybe S.6, for example. That probably will be the easiest for you, so you can easily identify where section 6 is, and then within there identify the sub-provision that you're looking for. Is it possible to control find on the exam materials on the platform? I don't think so, but let me actually take a double check, because I think that they've updated it so that you could easily navigate the platform. Just one second. Okay, so let me reshare my screen. Second, if I can find my share screen button. Okay, so oops, I didn't need to click on that. Okay, so if you have the exam platform open and you have the exam aids open, then you should be able to click on the bookmarks. And then so you're not able to control find, but at least you're able to more easily navigate through the PDF file for the provisions for the act or the regulations that you're looking for. But the control find, I don't believe will work. Okay, so let me stop sharing that. Back to our Q&As. Is there a specific version of a dictionary that we should use? No, there's no specific version. It's just if you wish to use that, if you find that it would be helpful for you, then you can have that with you. Okay, so we got a lot of those control find questions. When citing something from a document we don't have access to, do we need to cite the whole rule, or is it just the rule and related title sufficient? Yeah, it would just be the rule or the related title. So if a question is about I don't know, confidentiality, for example, then it would be Code of Professional Conduct, section about confidentiality or rule about confidentiality, but we would not expect you to have the Code of Professional Conduct memorized in terms of the rule number or the provision number or anything like that. Okay, so thank you for telling me Bill 96 pertains to the French provisions and trademarks. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to misspeak there. There isn't specifically anything on the examination that relates to that particular bill on the exam. There isn't, I mean, you have to be aware of it if in terms of you providing services, if you're in Quebec, for example, but we wouldn't say, you know, cite this section of Bill 96 or anything like that. I would say that it's good for you to be aware of that because it's important as a Canadian trademark agent to be aware that if you are, you know, working with a client that is in Quebec or that is French speaking, that there are various rights afforded to them through the legislation, but it isn't a specific major competency that's being tested on the examination. Okay. We got a lot of those, a lot of repeat questions. Right, so copy and paste is working on the sample platform because the sample platform is not using a secure browser. The secure browser is used only during the examination. So that's why it's probably going to, and even control find will likely work for you on the sample exam platform, but it won't work for you on the secure exam platform. Should we put our phones on airplane mode so no incoming texts or calls come in? I don't know if your phone will still work if it's on airplane mode in terms of using Google Meets. So I think that in terms of the setting that you should have your phone on, it should be on do not disturb, that's for sure. So you're not getting phone calls or text messages, but you still need to have access to Wi-Fi so that your Google Meets app will work and you can connect with the proctor properly. Do we have to cite both parties for case law? Or can we cite only the first party like we often do? I believe that you're able to just cite the first party, but I will double check that with you and I will get back to the group. Actually, let me just check my, my slide deck. I thought that I had a slide on that. 1 second, let me just maybe pull that one back up. Okay, so the question is that we have in the FAQs, are full citations required when citing a case or is it sufficient to do abbreviated versions? Full citations are not required. So for example, Nova Farm versus Bayer is sufficient. So, okay, you're wondering if you could just say Nova Farm, for example, or just Bayer. So that I will double check with you and get back to you on that. Tifan, can you note that question as well?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so by copy and paste, that means that you can use the wording verbatim, but the actual copy and paste functionality on the secure platform won't actually work. And that's a security feature. The link to will the link to the exam platform and codes be sent on the day of the exam? This goes hand in hand with my VPN question. If we cannot be logged in using VPN, I cannot access my work email. I see. That's a really good question. So I would say that you need to make sure with the live proctors next week during the check-in, check and see if it works. If it does not work, then you have to make sure that you can access your work email in a different way, or you need to use a different email address so that you can access that email account without being connected to your VPN. So if you're using your work email and you can't use that because it's VPN, then you need to switch to a personal email and you have to email us so that we can update our records and then make sure Monitor EDU has the corrected email address for you. You confirm that we need one computer, one phone, and the relevant applications, and not, for example, 2 phones. I ask because we may want to waive our phones at the camera in the event of a power outage, but the computer camera might be off in the event of a power outage. Yes, so you need your computer. That will help. That's where you actually do the exam. You're going to need your cell phone that has the Google Meets app downloaded on it, and that's where you'll be connecting with the live proctor. And if you wanted to have the dictionary or the printed materials with you, those are the things that you'll need to have with you. If your computer disconnects or if you have a power outage, then that way at least your phone will still be able to connect to the live proctor. Okay, so we have a candidate who's saying that they asked the exam platform provider to if we could use Control F, and they told them CPATA needs to tell them to enable this feature. So I will check with them. They have not advised me of this. So I will check with them and see if that is something that they can turn on. And I will let you all know what the result of that discussion is, but they had not advised me that I could request that to be turned on. So I will get back to everybody about the Control F. Right, so again, on the sample platform, it does work because it is not a secure browser. Right, so copy and paste is not going to work. That is definitely turned off, and that is not something that will be turned on because that is an exam security issue. So you can, verbatim write something from the ACT into your response, for example, but copying and pasting in the platform or even outside of the platform will not be working. Right, so Francesco's asking, is there a way to practice under the exact test conditions? Yeah, that's what you're doing next week at the live proctor check-in.
Oh, and for the blank pages question, last year was not in the candidate guide.
Okay. So we're not going to, for this year, just so that, because it's the last year and we want to make sure everybody is as comfortable as possible. I'll write a note to myself. Actually, Tiffany, can you write this note that will advise Monitor EDU that they can have blank paper with them for writing during the exam, but they're going to have to rip that up at the end of the examination time. So that will be permitted. So it's an exam security issue to copy and paste because the platform does not differentiate between copying and pasting within the platform and outside the platform. So for example, you could copy a question and then close the examination and then paste it outside of the platform. And that would be an exam security, like an integrity issue. So that's why copy and pasting is just generally not used on secure exam platforms. I feel like that was a rapid fire question answer period. Lots of the same question though. Right, so that's not possible. I've already checked with the platform provider and copying and pasting is not permitted within the platform or outside the platform. It's just not enabled to do that on the secure browser. So in order for you to be able to use the Trademarks Act and the regulations or the other parts of the stem of the question, you're going to have to type it out. Copy and paste in terms of that functionality on the actual computer isn't permitted. The exam results, that's a really good question. I'm really hoping that the exam results will be provided by the holidays, either right before the holidays or right after the holidays, so that you are able to know well ahead of the knowledge exams if you have to take the knowledge exams or if you have passed the 2023 exams. So that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I'm hoping for. Once we have more concrete timelines for when the results will be released, when you should be requesting recorrections, etc., we'll post that and we'll notify everybody. But I'm really hoping that at least the initial corrections will be done prior to the holidays this year. Right, so if you have signed up if you passed a part last year, if you passed part A or part B, then you're only having to write the part that you didn't pass this year. If you only write one part this year, then that's the only part that will be marked. So if you're an exam writer that's writing both parts, then both parts will be marked. And I identified that because prior to CPATA's coming into force, the way that the exams were marked was that only part A would be marked, and those that passed part A would then have part B marked. So we're not doing it like that anymore. Everybody is having both parts marked if they're writing both parts. If you're only writing one part, then only that part will be marked. Yeah, no problem, Andrea. Sorry that scared you. I didn't mean to do that. Any other questions? Okay, so we're going to be checking on a few things. Tifan, can you remind me of the questions that we're going to be checking on, and then we'll notify everybody of the results in the email confirmation we send later this week?
Okay, so the questions are: what is needed to get full marks when citing the trademark examination manual?
Mhm.
And do we have to cite both parties for case law, or can we cite only the first party like we often do?
Perfect. And then we're going to check on the control find.
Yes, that is
And
written as well.
we're going to
The blank
allow for
paper.
blank paper. Yeah, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 things. We're going to check on those items that Tifan mentioned, and then we'll send an email to everybody with that information. We just got another question. Can you run through the proctor check-in for next week? What do we need to do? We'll actually send everybody an email that's registered for the exam. We're going to send that email on Friday that has the details and the instructions for how to do the live proctor check-in next week and how to connect with a proctor next week. So look out for that email probably on Friday. Yes, Francesca. So if the question doesn't ask for an authority, then you don't need to cite the authority. The question will specifically say, explain your answer and cite the relevant authority, for example, if that is what is required. Okay, well, I just wanted to say thank you, everybody, for taking time out of your afternoon to attend the orientation session today. It's very, very important that you get this information. So I'm very happy that we had such a great turnout. This information will be posted on our website, and we will let everybody know once it's been posted. We'll post the slides, we'll post the recording for the orientation. We're going to send out a confirmation of registration this week. So that will be a PDF letter sent from me that indicates your candidate ID. It indicates if you have accommodations, if you have consented to have your training supervisor or your firm receive your results, if you're writing in French or in English, all of those things. So that confirmation will come probably on Thursday or Friday. You'll also get an email that explains the live proctor check-in instructions for next week. I just want to highlight the candidate ID because last year there was a little bit of confusion about what that was. So you have a CPATA ID, and that is your registration number with us. That is public information. It's on the public register. It's the unique identifier that we use to identify you as an agent. You are also going to be assigned a candidate ID number, and that is going to be a different number from your CPATA ID. And that candidate number is the number that you're going to be using with the exam platform provider and the live proctors to check into the examination. So when they ask you for your candidate ID, you're not going to give them your CPATA ID. You're going to give them the candidate ID that's going to be noted in your confirmation letter that you'll get this week. So that is the ID that you need to use. And we use these candidate IDs because when the exam board marks the exams, they only have access to your candidate ID. They don't have access to your name. They don't have access to your email address or your CPATA ID. So it's a completely anonymized marking process. And that's why we have a different candidate ID than what your CPATA ID is. So it's important that you differentiate those. And when you're actually doing the exam, that you're using the candidate ID that we have identified for you in that confirmation. Right. Okay. So someone's asking, authority means statute, case law, or practice notice. Correct. I believe it just means statute or practice notice. I don't know if it means case law. So Tifan, can you note that one down too? And we'll just double check to make sure whether case law is considered a part of when you cite the authority or not. Okay, awesome. All right. Well, I wish everybody all the luck on the exam. I hope that everybody does very, very well this year. And if you have any questions or concerns between now and when the exam is written, or if you have issues or anything with the proctors or checking in with the exam, please contact Tifan or I at the registration contact information that's on our website, and it's at the end of the candidate orientation slides as well. If you need a French-speaking proctor, then that is available for you as well. So you just need to send an email in the live proctor check-in instructions. It will indicate who you need to send an email to request a French-speaking proctor, but that is also available for you. And the exam platform is in French as well. So if you are a French writer and you are going to be writing the exam in French, then the platform will also be presented to you in French. Right, so we're going to check on the examination manual in terms of the authority, because I don't think that that is something that you would have to specifically cite, as it is not one of the resources that we're giving to you during the examination, but we'll let everybody know about that. Last call. Questions? Okay, well, good luck, everybody. I'm sure you will all do very, very well. And I look forward to sending you more information about this year's exam, making sure everybody's ready to go. And yeah, we're here if you need us. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions or concerns, or you just need to talk through anything with us. Then we'll be good to go. Okay, I'm going to end the webinar now. Thank you all again very much for coming, and I hope you have a great afternoon. Bye.